Is anyone else burnt out on life? I would be filming this outdoors, but it's pouring rain right now, so I thought I'd just sit in front of a blank wall and ask you if you're feeling the same way. Modern life is very unfulfilling, and as much as I've simplified my life, I have not necessarily moved in the full direction that I've wanted to, and I am still enmeshed in this web that we call civilization. And while I certainly see some good in it, I see that it's deeply unfulfilling, and I'm sure some of you really relate to this, but it all seems quite pointless. Now, I'm not saying life seems pointless. I'm saying modern life and society and civilization all seem like a total racket. I mean, if you think about it, we used to be relatively free. If you look back at the medieval peasants of England, for example, who we're looking at 12 to 1500 AD, 1200 to 1500 AD, and while they were certainly serfs and they had to pay the lords that owned the land, whether it was through crops or what, not, they had a lot more control of their time. They had a lot more control of their work, how they did it. And they had a lot more downtime. I actually punched into Google how much the average full-time worker works each year in terms of days, and it's 220 days plus per year. Medieval peasants used to work seasonally and had a lot of the winter off, and also they were quite religious, so they had a lot of holy days and festivals and days off, and including the winter season. They weren't able to grow much, and they worked maybe 120 to 180 days per year. Of course, I'm not going to glamorize their lives. I don't, if anyone's ever done manual labor of any sort, whether it be on a farm or construction or anything of the sort, and these were mostly subsistence farmers, it's rough work. It takes a lot out of you. The upshot is that you are in total control of your own body, but of course they didn't have the health care that we have and all these other things. And sometimes I wonder if progress is actually regression. Are we actually a regressive society? Yeah, this is a wandering stream of consciousness, and I am rereading, and yes, actually reading, not just typing crap into ChatGPT and hoping I can pretend that I know what I've read. But I'm actually rereading Walden for the umpteenth time, and this is my original copy of Walden. Well, it's not the first copy I owned. That one is long gone, but you can tell this is pretty tattered. So I am reading a newer copy that I've only read once. And earlier today, and if you have this edition, you can get it on Amazon. If you have this edition, there is a quote in the chapter that's called Where I Lived, and it says, let's see, let me find it, sorry. But I think it really sums up, it's half a sentence. And I'll paraphrase it after I say it, because sometimes people look at me blankly when I say this to them. But it makes a lot of sense, and Thoreau understood this better than anyone. And it says, again, this is like a fraction. This is a fragment, a sentence fragment. It's just a fraction of a sentence. But it says, a man is rich. For a man is rich in proportion to the number of things which he can afford to let alone. Again, I'll say it. For a man is rich in proportion to the number of things which he can afford to let alone. I wonder, and let me paraphrase that though for you. A man or woman is rich in proportion to the number of things that he or she can afford to leave alone. It's, just a couple words there, but that I changed. But anyway, I wonder how many of us have so much excess in our lives that is just stressing us out. I have less excess than most people I know, and yet I am still stressed out. My excess is in the digital world, files and things of the sort. My excess is in books. I read a ton of books, but I certainly have not read. I buy more than I read, that's for sure, even though I read daily. I did one thing. I switched. No more smartphone. A lot less noise. But I wonder what we can leave alone. You know what I mean? Like, why do we need 5 video subscriptions? Why do we need a closet full of clothes? Why do we work so hard? And now everyone tells me it's to survive, it's hard to survive, and I know that there are genuinely people having a hard time to survive, like legit having a hard time to survive. And most of us in the developed world are extremely privileged in the sense that we have access to things that other people don't, but at the same time, is it a double-edged sword? This video is not necessarily providing answers. It's asking questions. I'm better at asking questions than finding answers, because I think these answers are uniquely individual. And I can just tell you where I'm at. I, for the most part, enjoy my work. If I were to not get paid for it, would I do that work? No. So that tells you one thing. Do I like my employer and my coworkers? Yeah. For the most part, I feel like we have a solid team of people who genuinely mean well and take pride in their work. Not everyone, but for the most part. So there's that. So as far as employment goes, it's certainly a positive place. Would I like more control of my time? Absolutely. Would I like more control of my location? Yes. Freedom of time and space is the biggest luxury I think we have these days. I just wonder when it stops, you know? It's like, in order to simplify our lives, we just have to start saying no to things. For example, I used to have a cell phone, mobile phone service through a major carrier. And then I switched to, and I don't remember what they call it, but I switched to a much smaller company that has no brick and mortar stores. And I saved myself like $70 a month. So, I mean, that's not a huge change, but if you add it up month by month, I mean, $70 times 12. I mean, that's over $840 a year. So that's $840 I don't have to work for, or that $840 that I could save. You know, I also switched to a light phone, and that minimizes the noise in my life, which allows me to focus on other things. And I've gotten rid of a lot of stuff. I've literally, in front of a relative's house, they let me put out a table full of free stuff. And I did that last year, and I actually did it for several days, and it was kind of awesome. It's like the gift economy, you know. It was all sorts of things, and I did it for several days because every time space would free up on the table, I would go and put more stuff out. So it was a good excuse to visit with family and to hang out and relax, but also to get rid of a carload of stuff, which was pretty amazing. I'm in an apartment, so I can't exactly do that where I'm at. So yeah, thank goodness for family, for so many reasons. But I still feel like I have too much, and life is too complicated, and you know, I know this is not exactly the most, you know, popular style of video. Some potentially disorganized chain of consciousness or stream of consciousness, and if you don't like it, I'm sorry. But what I can say is that I'm looking for answers for myself. I'm prone to what you would call digital clutter. I don't have social networks. I have a lot of online accounts for buying stuff. Most of it is basic supply type stuff I can't find in the local stores because I'm in the mountains and we have limited options, even with a decent sized grocery store. I'm kind of snobby about food. I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't have health care, so I practice preventative health care. I practice self-care. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where to begin. But I do know where I find joy, and it's outside. And I'm sitting in a beautiful apartment, talking to a phone screen, well, a video camera built into my old phone, and yeah, I guess I'm not exactly living in alignment with my values. Because if I were, I'd be in a cabin in the woods, in the mountains. But what I can say is this: the moments that I have been happiest are when I have the least amount of material possessions, but my basic needs are met. I have clothes, I have shelter, and I have food. And, you know, I've stayed in monasteries before, temples. I've also just done a lot of pilgrimage type treks and walks and hikes, and carried nothing but a backpack. And the movement of your body from one place to another by the means of your own feet is one of the simplest, most fulfilling joys life has to offer. And if anyone, see, I'm even tearing up over this, but if anyone has ever had such an experience or experiences, they would know what I mean. For example, I stayed at a monastery as a guest, and I had a small room. It was mine. It was totally mine, but it was so basic. No adornments whatsoever. Just white walls, single bed, twin size, with sheets, pillow, and a couple warm blankets, and one chair in the corner, and small chest of drawers, and I had nothing but my backpack in that room. And we were given 2 meals a day, and it was a long vipassana. It was not one of the conventional vipassanas through Dhamma.org. It was through a monastery, and I could have stayed there. If they would have let me, I would have. What does that say? And everyone tells me that what good is it to hide in a monastery? And you're supposed to, I get told you're supposed to use what you learn out in the real world. Real. They use the word real in relation to the most artificial civilization we could have possibly come up with, and it's becoming more artificial by the moment. And I could just laugh, because what is more real than living in the mountains with only the absolute basics and exploring your inner landscape and purging yourself and transmuting everything that's gone on in your life that has disturbed you, enriched you, whatever. And eating modestly, breakfast and lunch. And only having a hot cup of herbal tea in the afternoons. and waking up at dawn or before dawn and watching the sun rise and set from the mountaintops. What is more real than that? We have become so disconnected from our true nature that we forget that we are part of nature, that we are not separate, even though we choose to separate ourselves. And I think this is the biggest reason for our dissatisfaction with life. The mass wave of depression that is sweeping across the developed world. People's lack of fulfillment. I'll go into this in another video, but the fact that we live in a civilization, and I say this in quotes, civilization, that promotes and revolves around division of labor and specialization, is the cause of all this. And it is our job to reconnect with our natural state and to start creating again. And by creating, I mean creating with our hands and our minds, and creating things that exist in the tangible world, not just the digital world. And the irony of that statement being that I'm making this video and posting it on the internet is not lost on me. I live a very privileged life. That I understand. That I totally get and accept. But when all your basic needs are met and you live in an artificial world, confronting the challenges that come with that artificial world, is a real task. It's a real challenge that all of us face, and it's worth talking about. And so while this video was completely meandering and doesn't exactly have a script, I don't do scripts. I would rather just be real and be straight with you all. I don't know. I hope it, I wonder if it will strike a chord with any of you. As the world hastens and quickens its pace, it's our job to live life as we see fit, and to strip away all that dross and find joy. If any of you want to share your experiences and your thoughts on this topic, please do so. I'd love to hear your experiences and your ideas, and just curious of how we all move forward individually. Of course, it's not a collective thing. It becomes a collective thing when enough of us do it, but it's individual. Anyway, thank you for tuning in. When it's not raining again, I'll go back outside and shoot my videos there, but I appreciate you for joining. Thanks so much.